Planning an event and wondering how you can give your attendees the best experience possible? Take advantage of customized meetings with Hilton that make it easier than ever to incorporate health, wellness, entertainment, and waste reduction. From yoga and yogurt morning starts to puppies and ice cream afternoon breaks, Hilton will help you build an extraordinary meeting that attendees will remember. To book your next meeting or event, go to meetings.hilton.com. That's meetings.hilton.com. Digitel is one of the leading companies for live streaming events, running corporate virtual events, or managed webinars. If you're looking to reach worldwide markets or generate revenue from adding a virtual component to your meetings and conferences, leverage Digitel's 33 years of experience in creating flawless online events. For more information, go to digitellinc.com or email them at contactus@digitel.com.
Are you a follower? Okay, so we're gonna be
Welcome to GatherGeeks, a podcast by BizBash, the place where people passionate about meetings and events come together. Here are your hosts, BizBash CEO David Adler and Editor-in-Chief Beth Kormanik.
Hi, David.
Hey, Beth. Here we are, another GatherGeeks.
And today our guest is Pablo Oliveira, who is president of Miami-based Nüage Designs. The company provides rentals of table linens and other textiles for events. We have long covered Nüage Designs as part of our event reports, and Pablo himself was a BizBash innovator in 2011. And today our conversation it's really a 101 on working with your linen provider.
And also figuring out how important this really is for an event. How, we don't think about it as much as we should. And it does become a real building block of design.
It does. Oliveira is also the company's creative director, so he's going to get into trends in linen design, but also talk about the kind of the theory behind the choice of linens. He and you describe linens as a vehicle for storytelling. They can be conservative or adventurous or edgy, and they're literally the foundation for your event design, and they anchor your look.
Yep. It's like a hint of what's going to happen.
So let's take a listen.
Hi, Pablo. Welcome to GatherGeeks.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm so fascinated with your story and what you've done and what you've accomplished in our industry. I want to first start with, give us the elevator pitch of what you actually do and what your company is.
All right. So Nüage Designs is a design, I would call it a couture design and rental company for textiles. Our primary product is table linens, but we also have a bunch of other things like table runners and pillows and napkins. So anything that we can make with textiles that will, help an event designer or a company, a brand, tell their story. This is what we do. Technically, it's rental of linens, but like I like to say, we help tell stories with our textiles.
But tell us, how do you tell a story with a textile? I mean, and maybe you should start with, what is the importance of tabletop in an event experience, and tell us why we should really care so much about this and why our industry does care about this.
Sure. Well, when you're designing an event, there's just so much that you can play with, right? You have the lighting, you have entertainment, you have a zillion other things. But when you think of textile is basically a canvas, so you are really helping tell a story, and the textile is the canvas for that. That's how I like to see it. So obviously, there are so many attributes to fabric, whether it's the color, the texture, the pattern, and all of that is what I think helps, tell a story.
And what are the elements of a textile from the neuroscience of it that jazzes people, that makes people sort of say, oh my God, this is an experience?
Mm-hmm. Well, it all depends on on what you're trying to achieve when you're using the textile. Obviously, depending on the color that you're using, you can create a mood, right? It's not for nothing that, let's say, a brand like McDonald's, they use the colors that they use in their outlets because that obviously creates a certain response to people when you go there. So it's the same thing with the textile. Are you using a primary color? Are you using a more moody blue or gray or like a burgundy? So all of that plays into the the psychology when you are at an event.
And let's go a little bit into the psychology. What are the different sort of points of moods that you're trying to create? What do you do with different moods? Like how do you match a linen to your mood? It's like mood. So it's like kind of like pairing wine and food in a sense. What are your rules of thumb? I mean, you're an expert at this.
Well, it's like it's really it's the same effect that you see in fashion and in interior design. So obviously, the way you dress tells me a little bit about who you are. Are you conservative? Are you adventurous? Are you, someone that is edgy? So it's the same thing with textile.
So the fabric of the textile of the tablecloth becomes that canvas that says who you are.
Exactly. So it's the same thing at an event.
And so let's start with like the personas of the real formal person. Like, what are they looking for? What do you suggest for them? Like, is it like a chic? What kind of textile would you suggest in a real formal setting, or does it matter?
Sure, because like I said, it's all about the story that you were telling for the event. I can give you an example.
Yeah.
We work closely with a designer that does a lot of work for a jeweler. And it's a very traditional jeweler. Obviously, for events. That we're helping that designer produce for that jeweler, the key is really understated elegance. You will never see sequins. You'll never see, colorful prints or anything like that. It's really all about being understated. So we look for textures. We look for muted colors. We look for perhaps a little bit of a metallic, but not too much, so it's all to be within that safe zone that that really tells you luxury, but without being extravagant.
So you're a customer that doesn't really know enough about it. How do you read the customer, and then what do you ask for? Like, as a person buying linens or renting linens, what am I supposed to be asking for, and how do you interpret it? And then what is the end product? Like, how do you describe the products internally to your people?
Mm-hmm. Well, the good thing nowadays is that everybody has, like, let's say an inspiration board, right? So obviously you can ask questions, and we do, but the best tool that helps us understand is if they refer to an inspiration board. When we're working with brands, obviously, they there's a whole set of brand assets that they have, and guidelines when they're producing their events that also help us understand what the message is and how we can help them achieve that.
So the thing is, so you start with the tablecloth, but then you do brilliant tablescapes and things like that. How far up the chain do you go? Do you create an entire table?
We focus on the textile, so the tablecloth, the napkins. Sometimes we also help accent lounges if they're doing lounges with pillows, and we really bring our all our capabilities with textile to create a cohesive theme for that event. So, and it's a collaboration, right? So we typically work with a designer or an event producer who then has a team of other collaborators, who will do floral or will do tabletop and other things, but everything kind of like is very cohesive, and it's a collaboration.
So who is when you see these incredible tablescapes or table settings at an event, who is in charge of that? Like, who would be the person? I mean, ultimately, it's kind of confused. Like, sometimes people have assets, have people that will help them. Sometimes you end up doing it probably for some people. Where's the responsibility lie on these beautiful, incredible tables?
I know it can get confusing, and sometimes there's a lot of chiefs. It depends. It varies. Sometimes we've worked directly with brands that have an event planner in their payroll, but oftentimes is an event designer.
So this is the bailiwick of the designer. You're giving canvas to the designer.
Exactly.
But not everyone has a designer at their events. So when you don't have a designer, who makes that decision? Who makes the decision on creating the centerpieces and all of that? Is it the florist and the linen company together, or is it the florist? Like who's the ruler of the roost in that?
It really changes all the time.
So there are no rules. I'm right.
There are no rules. No, there are no rules. There are caterers that have design capabilities. Sometimes even the venue has a say, and they're the ones that are bringing us to the table, literally. So it varies, and it changes all the time. It depends on who is in charge of the event.
Right. So go into how big is the linen part of the event industry? I mean, it seems like I see this everywhere, and you see very specialized people doing it. How big of the industry is it? And then talk about your company and how you've grown over the years. Because you're well known as one of the leaders and the tastemakers in this particular industry.
Well, thank you. I think the role of the table linen is huge because depending on the complexity of the design of an event, if you have nothing and you have a table linen, dressing tables in a ballroom, then you have an event, right? So, and that, depending on how you dress those tables, then there you go, you can have a theme.
Right.
So I think, the if I were to rank the importance, I would rank it pretty high. Obviously, I love food, so I can say that an event, also has to have great food.
Of course, right.
But in terms of the design, I would say, if you have the linen, you have some interesting floral or a non-floral centerpiece, then you have at least the two key elements that can make an event.
When's the big event? Hilton is here for planners with their exclusive customized meetings. Become a wow maker and save time by letting Hilton help you present an extraordinary event, one that leads to memorable and meaningful connections. Visit meetings.hilton.com and let Hilton help you.
Okay, so go through the design of the table linens. What is the ecosystem? What is there must be a whole crew of people that are just designing table linens. And are you guys doing them as well? Mm-hmm. You're designing them and manufacturing them, or are you renting them and buying them? What's your ecosystem look like?
So we manufacture everything in-house. I have a team of a sewing team. And because when I started my business, we were primarily custom making for almost every single event. Then
custom making the linens for
yes, that's how I really started. I got into that. Nowadays we have a huge warehouse with inventory. So if you call us today and you need something shipped this afternoon, then we have, like I said, a huge inventory of many hundreds of styles. But that's how I started. So. And actually, you go to restaurants and you have show kitchens. We have a show sewing room. It's a glass room, and everybody that comes to our showroom, they can see our production because I like to put them in the spotlight, and everybody enjoys seeing, them in action and see how everything is done. And I usually take our customers on a tour to show them how magic is created.
How many sewers do you have, and how big is it?
So we have a full-time team of 10, but in periods of high season, that can even increase by 50%.
And so, are you going around the world buying fabric and creating fabric, or what does your job look like in terms of buying it and being the tastemaker for this?
Sure. So I run the company, but at the same time I am the creative director. So I travel the world, like you just said, looking for inspiration, visiting, different fairs. I like to go to Maison Objet in Paris, and that's usually in the cutting edge of everything that is happening in interior design in the next, I'd say, like year or two. So that's really where you see things come up and trends. So I go to that. I go to Asia for source different things. And I traveled the whole U.S. Visiting either interior design fairs or gift fairs, and I look at fashion,
looking for fabrics,
looking for inspiration more than anything. So I look at magazines, I look at fashion. What's happening in fashion.
And is this to create your own designs, or is this to buy fabric? I'm trying to understand the ecosystem.
Both.
You're actually designing fabric from scratch?
Yes,
so
I am.
Is that your main sort of thing that you come up, or are you where does it help me understand what
I would say half of the designs that we have I create from scratch, and then another half with my travels, I find fabrics that I like. So we just buy them and we make them into tablecloths.
So how do you create a design from scratch, a tablecloth from scratch? What is involved in that?
Sometimes it's I can look at a dress, let's say a wedding dress, and there is something unique about either the cut or the shape of it or the pattern that inspires me. So I can go ahead and create a pattern, and then I work with factories that can
like
produce.
It's like clothing. You're making clothing.
Exactly. Yes.
But you're instilling your design into these things.
Yes. So I sometimes see, let's say, a pillow, which only exists in the form of a pillow, but then I like there's something about it that inspires me. So I go ahead and work with a factory to help me, in manufacturing a fabric that is inspired by what I see.
And how do you know that fabric is going to be accepted by the market?
I don't.
So it's a risk a little bit.
It's a risk, and it happens at times that I create something and we produce something, and we introduce, and we have very lukewarm response, and then I'm like, oh, okay, I guess it was a good idea, but it didn't work out, and then a year later, that's all people are asking for. Right. So you never know. Sometimes I feel like we are a little bit too early, to introduce a certain product, and then people start seeing it more and more in whether it's fashion or interior design. Then that generates demand for that product.
And then the event designers are your key market, I guess, in terms of wanting to use these specific designs, I assume.
Exactly. Yes.
So the Colin Cowies of the worlds and the Brian Raffinellis and people like that looking at your stuff as part of their canvas.
That's correct.
And so how many people are doing this around the world? I mean, this is kind of a hidden art.
There is definitely many people doing rentals of linen.
But creating them. I mean,
creating them, I can't quantify exactly how many are doing it in that level and in the level of personalization that we're doing.
And do you think the personalization makes a huge difference now, right? When
it
people
does.
want their own event, they really want this. The table linens become their trademark in a sense.
Absolutely, yes.
So what is hot now? Like we just did a story, I think today with, this is BizBash, and we did a story on how the minimalist look is gone and now we're in the maximalist look. Do you agree with that?
I think now it's all about being eclectic. There isn't just one thing defining. I think we're at a time that everything is just, allowed and accepted and embraced. I think that we had a time, I want to say maybe 8 years ago to 10 years ago, that more was more, right? We were huge on like ruffles and sequins and all kinds of like paillettes and, a lot of the fabrics used in apparel and fashion, they were really popular with table linens, and there still are. In the past few years, I feel there has been a back to the basics a little bit, and you see velvet is huge now, for example. So all these muted tones of velvet. There's a certain the vintage, the whole vintage. You see the Soho houses, for example. So that's kind of like the look that is very popular now too. Vintage with velvet, with linen, and then an abundance of beautiful prints. So there's really a little bit of everything.
And how long does it's all fashion.
Yes.
Like how long is a season, and how long is a trend? How in our world?
It really varies. Some things that we've introduced, I want to say 10 to 12 years ago, are still popular today. And some things just had their 2 or 3 years, and now they are pretty much gone.
What are the things that do stand the test of time that people are becoming standards in your world?
People love anything that is metallic.
Metallic is still big.
Yes, so definitely that. Some more traditional prints, I think they definitely would stand the test of times. And there's just something really beautiful about the simplicity of a solid linen, 100% linen, or a velvet tablecloth. That also is just a classic that will never go away.
And they all fit pretty well into the chargers, into the silverware and things like that. So how ornate is that world becoming? I mean, are you having to design around the actual china? Or does that normally you start with the tablecloth?
I think every event values or focuses on something different. So for certain events now, obviously the tabletop has become very important, and you see all these layered charger plates and dinner plates and beautiful, flatware and glassware. So obviously, if you go very intricate in that, then you need a more simple, more solid color tablecloth. But then again, like I said, it depends on what you're trying to achieve with the event. So, but definitely now, I think there is more elements that have to talk to each other to convey that message.
Now, what about some of the new tools that have been created to actually plan a table? I'm noticing All Seated does their Oculus type of environment. Are you seeing more ways that tools that people are to plan from the tabletop, from the linens up to the table, to the dishware and things? Or is it still just in the early stages of that?
I think definitely to create a layout, those tools are very important, and to organize the creative process.
Right. That's what I was trying to say. How do you organize the creative process?
Yeah. So definitely to organize the creative process, I think it has been great. But I think there's nothing like having a swatch of fabric in your hand to really, have a feel of what it is that you are creating.
Yeah, I guess digital texture is still so important. Because I guess in a tablecloth, the reason that felt and metallic and things like that it has some sort of emotional appeal.
Absolutely.
And that it's hard to do that digitally.
Yes. I think the inspiration boards are still very, very widely used, Pinterest and all of that. So I think that's still a very good tool. But I still believe in the importance of having our physical swatches in the hands of event professionals, right, for them to, that's for us, that's still the best tool for them to.
So also, I'm noticing also that when I go to conferences now, that people are using much more elaborate textiles at conferences for the seating and things like that. Are you seeing more of that as well?
Yes, absolutely.
It's just bare tables don't cut it anymore, right?
No, they don't. They because it's all about creating experiences.
Right.
So even though you were there to listen to great speakers, the whole experience of being there, I think it requires creating an interesting environment that also conveys the message of why you're there in the first place.
Right. And also, I believe that the textile, the touch piece, is more important. Like I've added live music to every one of my conferences because it raises the energy level. I think that the tactileness of not a blank slate table also not only gives you imagination in your brain, but also when you touch it, there's something about it.
Absolutely.
I've seen that at Engage, they deck out their conferences like it's a ball.
Yes,
in a sense.
And it also creates the perfect Instagrammable moment.
Well, that's one thing that an IG moment, Instagrammable moment, textiles are really one of the key cores of that.
Yes.
When you think about it, have you noticed that in Instagram, you see there's something that's sort of special about a photograph that has good linens involved.
Absolutely.
Yep. And so tell us a little bit about your story. How did you decide to get into this, and what was your path?
So it was really an accident. I did not wake up one day and said, "Oh, I think I want to open a linen company." That's not how it happened at all.
Where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Brazil.
Okay.
Born and raised. So I left when I was 17. I went to Europe to pursue my, at the time I had a hospitality education. So I was in Switzerland for 3 years studying hotel management, and I worked following my graduation, I worked for some luxury hotel companies like Four Seasons, Ritz-Carlton, and then life took me to Miami, sunny Florida, where, at the time boutique hotels were just getting started. So I joined the boutique hotel company, and it was a great experience for me. But even though I chose hospitality as a career, I always had a very strong creative side. When I was a child, I used to make my own toys out of cardboard, and I used to draw. So I always had this passion for designing. But I also wanted to travel the world. That's why I chose hospitality. But so when I was in Miami in hospitality, one event happened, and that was 9/11. And you recall that after that, travel took a big hit, and people were not traveling. So with that went my job. I lost my job, actually. And it was by accident that I fell into this. And but I feel like I was meant to do it.
Well, how did that happen?
So a friend of mine was manufacturing textiles in India and selling to department stores and resorts and just general home textiles. And I had met some people that were in events. So my friend actually was looking for a business partner to expand her business. So I obviously, when I was working at hotels, it didn't cross my mind, but I lost my job. So I was like, hey, listen, that opportunity you told me.
Yeah, let's try it.
Let me take a look and see. So so we partnered to do that business together. And then with my contacts that I had in events, I showed some of the samples that I had, and they were like, oh, this would be beautiful for a wedding, because we're all very, embellished, beaded and embroidered textiles that nobody at the time was really using for events. Remember that 20 years ago, we were, the world of table linens for events was an imperial stripe, damask, and novelty prints. That's basically what existed at the time. So we started manufacturing these beautiful textiles, and at the time, we were trying to sell them to linen companies, because I would show them to my friends who were in the event industry, and they would say, "Oh, we love this, but we don't really buy anything. We rent. Why don't you go to our rental company and offer this to them?" So we started going around and offering those linens to rental companies, and then they would ask us, "How many times can you wash this? This looks really delicate." So obviously we had a beautiful product that people wanted, but the linen companies were not that interested in buying them because they were not able to wash them 1,000 times. So after that, I realized, that instead of trying to sell the linens, why not me try to rent them to the designers? So that's how it all started. In the meantime, my friend who really got me into the business decided to do something else, because we were still kind of like learning about it and trying to figure out where to go. So she decided to do something else. She was like, I'm sorry I got you into this. It doesn't look like we're going anywhere. So if you want to, just be persistent and try it, good for you, but I'm going to do something else. So that was me 14 years ago.
And so tell us, what does it look like today? How many customers? How much inventory? How big of a warehouse? Like what have you achieved in these 14 years?
So we have a 50,000 square foot warehouse. and it's still a boutique company, and I like to keep it like a boutique style company. This way we can provide the personalized service that I like to provide to our customers. So we have a little over 50 full-time employees, plus many other people that are on call to help with delivery and setup and logistics in general. We have expanded. We're based in Miami. Our main operation is based in Miami, but I have sales associates that are spread across the country. And we are currently expanding to other markets with a different line of product, which is furnishings and dining chairs and dining tables, with still using textile. I'm basically looking at those products as an extension of our textile and how we use textile. So that's where we are today. We've done all kinds of events, from social, from very famous weddings to presidential inaugural balls, to openings of big casino hotels in Vegas, to weddings of heads of state in the Middle East. So, and everything in between, you name it.
So it sounds like, I mean, these linens are the building blocks of events in many cases.
Yes, they are.
And I think that you don't appreciate it until you see the magic, I think. And that's why I wanted to sort of dig in on the linen business, because it really, people don't realize how big of a deal it is and what's really involved. It seems like it's just magic. It just happens.
Yes.
But that there's someone behind it, and there are other companies that are doing the same thing, and that the tactile nature of textiles is something that is pretty critical to our world and the world in general.
I couldn't agree more with you.
Great. So tell us, how can people find you, get in touch with you? And you can service pretty much anywhere. Yes.
Wherever FedEx or UPS can deliver, we are there. Our website is the best way to get more information about our company. So it's nuagedesigns.com, Nuage designs.com. We post on Instagram every day, so you can find amazing inspiration on our Instagram account. Giving us a call also. Like I mentioned, we have sales associates in different parts of the country. And we have a beautiful swatch kit, which we call the design trunk, which I like to say is the starting point of any amazing event. So we have all these tools available for event professionals.
The last question I want to ask you is, what, as a designer and a creative director, creative person, what is the next mountain that you're going to climb? What is the next cool idea that you got in the back of your head?
I guess I will have to keep it as a secret.
Okay. Well, we'll tune in. Thank you so much, Pablo.
Thank you, David.
Bye-bye.
David, thanks for bringing us that conversation. We have seen a lot of trends in linen design with regard to texture, and that's something we're exploring in our upcoming fall issue. So I'll say that as a little teaser to kick things off. There may be multiple ways to get it right when it comes to linen choice, but you can definitely get it wrong. And our editorial team, we look at event photos twice a week, and we just saw an event where the linens, and by the way, these were not by Nüage, but the linens just ruined the look of the event. It was all wrong.
So it does prove the point how critical these little layers of things are, and how much of a genius these guys are when they do it right.
Yes. I also thought it was interesting how he mentioned that he gets inspiration for the design of these linens by his travel, and that's a key point, and this speaks to how creative people can get inspiration from anywhere, and also that while there are timeless designs, there's also really timely designs that really tap into the zeitgeist of what's happening in our culture.
It's also interesting that Nüage and what they're doing is such a. Who would have thought we were going to have a conversation about everything you ever wanted to know about table linens? It's like only at BizBash could we do this.
Absolutely.
So, Beth, what else is going on at BizBash?
Well,
you hinted a little bit about the issue.
The fall magazine, we'll be talking more about that in the coming episodes of GatherGeeks. But right now, I have something very, very timely and important for our listeners. We have extended our deadline for the Event Style Awards. So You now have until this Friday, August 24th, to enter. It is so simple to enter your work, and there are categories for so many facets of the industry. So check that out. This is our special extension of these awards, and so you still have time till this Friday. So go to bizbash.com/awards for details and to submit your work.
Fantastic. Now, before we end, I want to thank all the people that made this podcast possible. Dave Nelson, who is our producer. Claire Hoffman, who is our content person that makes the work sound great on the page, and also Rebecca Pappas distributes through all the various channels.
Great. Thanks so much, David.
So what do we say?
Gather on.
Gather on. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you like what you're hearing, be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. We can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Player FM, Google Play, and Pocket Cast. Be sure to leave us a rating and review. It helps others discover the GatherGeeks podcast. We'd also love to hear from you. You can leave feedback on Twitter @GatherGeeks or leave us an email, gathergeeks@bizbash.com. We hope you join us again for the next episode of GatherGeeks. Until then, gather on. If you are looking for a state-of-the-art learning management system, take a look at Digitel's newest platform, Opus DX. Opus DX offers the robust platform for event organizers and associations to manage content. To learn more and schedule a demo, email them at contactus@digitelinc.com. That's contact us at digitellinc.com.